Hello, everyone. I'm Stephanie Griffin. I'm the Executive Director of ACMP, and I'm here with our Grants Committee Chair and Board Secretary, Susan Alexander.
Hi, everyone.
Yes. So we're here. I think what we're going to do is walk you through the guidelines step by step and take a look together at the application, and then take any questions that you may have about the process for this year's grant. So why don't I just go right in and share? What do you say, Susan? Just share the page.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so here we are. And whoops, that's not it. There we go. Okay, just make it that I can see it. Okay, so these you've probably looked at already. These are the guidelines for this year's Chamber Music Workshop and Community Program grant application. You'll see a little change to the title for adult to amateurs and youth over 13. So that's like one of the big changes this year. And it's, it's not that we don't want to support programs for young children. It's just we have reduced budget this year for our grants. And in the interest of trying to serve ACMP's mission better, which is adult amateur chamber playing, our grants committee had a discussion and decided that for true chamber music programs, like 13 and up is more like, for more robust chamber music programs, there's more programs involving children when they're over 13. Earlier than that, it can be more about learning to play the instrument and the lesser chamber music content. So that's why we made that decision. Susan, do you have any comments?
I just, I'm confused because it says over 13 and then you just said 13 and up. What is it?
13 and up. So I should change that. I'll edit that. 13 and up. So middle school aged kids and up. Yes. But so that's the first thing. Yes, Susan, I will change that wording when we're finished here. I don't want to do it in real time right now. Okay. So purpose has not changed. Very important that your program fits in ACMP's mission, which is encouraging the playing of chamber music for pleasure. And this word here, active participatory chamber music experiences. So this program is all about that, because ACMP is all about getting people playing, actually playing. So our grants programs are not for things such as, music appreciation talks and stuff like that. This program is for you can apply for this grant if your program involves people actively playing chamber music. And as you know, we do not require nonprofit status, and we have a wide range of applicants from people that run a program through a large institution or little mom and pop adult amateur workshops or adult or children's youth camps, 13 and over camps. Yes, and the way we define chamber music is simply one on a part without a conductor, small ensemble. We don't set a number for that, a number of players, but it does need to be one on a part. So for example, if your program is a cello choir or a flute choir or any kind of orchestra, like chamber orchestra, even a chamber orchestra unconducted is not eligible unless it's really one on a part. It's one on a part chamber music that we support. Eligibility, we already said this. Individual workshop or community program organizers or organizations. Again, it can be an individual. It could, like, if you run something by yourself, a small scale thing, it's completely, we like supporting the sort of grassroots initiatives. So you are eligible. You do not need to be a big organization. So here's the requirements. Anyone in the world, which that's nothing new. These are none of these things so far are new, but just in case, we're just reviewing this. Again, as I said, you don't need nonprofit status. This is one that, comes up a lot in our review panel. We do not support courses or workshops exclusively for professional musicians, college music majors, or conservatory students. And so this one gets a little subtle because we do support, if you have college age students that come to your workshops, or if your workshop is for sort of that age, we will support programs that are for non-music majors. We don't support pre-professional training. And the reason that we're very strict about that is that we're the only foundation in the entire world that will support non-professional music making. And we have limited resources, and we want to make sure that our support goes to that. There's plenty of other foundations that will support college level pre-professional training. So if you ever have any questions about that, you can also email me, and we could have a phone call, or you can email me and we can discuss it, and I'll run it by Susan as well, the grants committee chair. Susan and I will discuss it, and we'll let you know before you waste time filling out the application. So if you have any doubts, send an email for sure about that. Okay, now the new thing about, we do not support programs for children under 13, so that is correct. If your program is intergenerational, and we have a number of long-term applicants who have intergenerational programs where people bring their children and stuff, and your 8-year-old and 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds are playing along, that is still eligible. The main thing is that either adult amateurs or youth are allowed to be a part of it. We won't support something exclusively for children under 13. And now this is something, this was not new. When those of you who have applied before would have received a link to this grantee toolkit when we sent your grant acceptance letter. But this year we're requiring you to check a box certifying that you will use our grantee toolkit. So maybe we should just take a moment to take a little look at that. Here it is. And if you want to look at it yourself, you'll see that there's a little hyperlink on this page where you can see it. Here you go. Grantee toolkit. You've got a picture of people playing chamber music for pleasure in someone's living room. So the main thing here, and this you don't have to open the toolkit for, this is our funding credit language. This program was made possible in part through the support of Associated Chamber Music Players, ACMP, an international service organization supporting chamber music for pleasure. Join ACMP, membership is free. So we're hoping that you will put that on your materials, and as a way to remind your participants that they can become a part of our, be in our directory, become a part of our network. And here, when you click on this link, there's a Google Drive folder with all these things. We have here, Susan actually wrote a sample speech that you can use. It's very good. We won't look at it now, but you can read it. And we also made some talking points for people that like to rather extemporize. This is sort of bullet points about what you can say about ACMP to your participants. And this is to help you, because we do a lot of things that even a lot of our own members don't even fully understand what we do. So this is so you don't have to spend time looking through our website and finding all that stuff. This will tell you what you can tell your participants. There's also postcards and name tags. And if you are in the US, we can, your acceptance letter will have a link to where you can order these, and we will mail them to you. You don't have to print them. They're very cute. The name tags in particular are very cute. So basically, if you're not in the US, you can use this link. One of our members actually recently has created, and I will add it to this, we now have a German language version of the card. So I will stick that in there. I just was reminded that it's not in there, and I'm going to try eventually to get other people to make other language versions of it as well. But if you're international, it's very expensive for us to mail these. So if you can print them yourselves, and if you need help with that, you can send me an email about that too. Here is just the logos and QR code. There's a few different formats of the logos. They're all in there, square, padded, different types of files. For your website, your print materials, your emails, whatever you do, it's all there. Oopsie, I lost the whole thing. There we go. And then this is already in that you already saw, it's on the website, the funding language. And this is just in case you're confused. Here's just a document that Susan created that just tells you what's in here. There are going to be new things in this grantee toolkit that are actually going to be more fun. We're working on this whole idea of, if you get a grant from us, you're part of a cohort, a group of our grantees, and we are going to create some forms that you can fill out to give us information so that we can post about your events on social media, and some other I don't know, Susan, if you want to say anything else about that, but we're going to try to create a sense of community between everyone that gets a grant from us, and we're going to do our best to also promote your work as an ACMP grantee to our expanding network. We're now at 3,850 members, adult amateur members. So that's a nice thing that we want to try to do this year, is work with you to get the word out. And actually, that's another thing. It'll be on your grant acceptance form. If your application is funded this year, it'll be on your grant acceptance form, a link to our events directory. We really hope everyone, not just grantees, but everyone puts, especially their adult. Children's programs are a little different because children don't use our directory to find things. But if you have an adult program, I urge you to use our directory to put it in, because a lot of people actually do look at it. It's very, we have a pretty large adult to amateur community, and there's more than meets the eye, because we have a lot more people that use our site than those 3,850 that are in the directory. So a free place to advertise your thing. And if you have trouble, you need any help, you can reach out to me, and Joseph Brock can help people with listings and things like that. Okay, onwards. So that's the toolkit. Susan, just interrupt me at any point if I'm saying something wrong or if I'm missing something.
No, I think that's basically the idea.
Good.
It's kind of a we hope that you'll do some things for us, but we also want to do things for you, and that's more that's a direction that we would like your ideas on, so that we can implement more things to make this a two-way street in many ways. One other thing that we're going to have is something for kids programs. The usual things that we have for adult programs don't make sense, but we are going to have a cute sticker that's like future member of ACMP for kids to stick on their cases, maybe, or something like that. So we're thinking about trying to make being part of this community of chamber music players and infrastructure, a fun thing.
Yes. Excellent. Okay. So on to the guidelines, as usual, have to be submitted in English using the online application form. And I put this note here. You can use Google Translate in your process. And we're not picky about, like, if the English is not perfect, we just need to understand what you say. But the form itself, so if you are going to use Google Translate, do it offline in whatever program you use, Word or whatever, and then paste the stuff in. Yeah, we can't have an application that has answers in other languages in it. All programs must take place after the grant notification date, March 15th, 2025. So these grants are for events from March 15th, 2025 through March 14th, 2024, 2026, not going backwards, although maybe we are going backwards, but anyway, not in time. So this is important. A lot of people write me and ask me questions about longer duration. If your event is a community program that's like a weekly course or a monthly course or something like that, It's okay if it started before March 15th, 2025, as long as there's a bunch of it left after that. And, you know, the main reason is also if we're going to give money, we want to know that, like, if you can do this program before we even give you money, then maybe you don't need money. Is that, and also crediting us. We want to be credited for our support. So yeah, so that's, and if you have any questions about that, about your specific ongoing thing or whatever, again, just reach out to me. The 5 program categories, this is not new. There's the classic adult or intergenerational workshop. So that's a shorter duration thing. Let's say it could be 2 weeks or it could be a month, but it's a shorter duration focused thing. It could be 2 days. It could be a weekend thing where people get together. It doesn't have to be residential. It can be a day camp thing where it's only, you know, people that live in your area already come from like 9 to 5 for 2 or 3 consecutive days. We have plenty of applicants of that type, but it's a shorter duration focused thing for adults or intergenerational. So meaning it has to include adults, but can also include youth. The second category is adult or intergenerational longer duration community programs. So that's the kind of thing, as I said earlier, that is something that meets at a regular interval, once a week, once a month, whatever, not all compact in, you know, one little short time span. So that's the typical sort of thing that a community music school would have, for example, a chamber music program. The third category for ages 13 and older, youth chamber music camp. So that's like category 1, but for youth. So that'd be sort of 13. And I'm saying 13 and older because there could be 19-year-olds or whatever. You can sort of, Susan, do you have thoughts about that? There's basically as long as they qualify as young youth or young adults, right? For that?
Yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
Yes. Okay. And category 4 is basically again the youth version of category 2, you know, some sort of community program that meets, you know, in periodically, you know, a regular period of like for age 13 and over youth. Okay, and then other. And other, if you have any questions, ask me about that and I'll check it with Susan. But other is more like, for example, we have a few examples, master classes, seminars, and other, you just tell us the age range, if it's adults, if it's youth, if it's intergenerational. If you have something that's neither really a workshop nor a regular community chamber music program, but does involve some form of active chamber music. So for example, a masterclass series would be a very good example of that. But people get very creative, and if you have something creative but you're not sure it fits, before you waste your time filling out the application, really just write me, sgriffin@acmp.net, and I will look it over and I will check it with Susan and get back to you. Because, for example, it's happened a few times that people have submitted this application form and I write them back and say, look, we can give you money, but that's more of a play-in. And our play-in grant is really easy. So if you're applying for a play-in, don't fill this application form out. Then I'll send that to you and it's a 1-page PDF and whatever. So like, that's why we really want you to ask questions before you do it if you're not sure. Okay, the budget form. I can pull that up. It's the same as last year, nothing different. I think one thing that's important is a lot of people don't really use this notes column enough. It's nice to use the notes column. Like if you have earned income, let's say you know that it's going to be $3,000, just a very simple note that $3,000 earned income, we're charging, you know, $300 per person and we expect 10 people to pay or something, you know, 10, just something very scanty note form to tell us what that is. Other foundation grants, you could say, you know, you could list them if you want, or just the names or whatever. It's the same government grants, state government, but that's not as important, but that's important to know what this is. We don't need notes on individual donations. That's fine. This in the expenses category, this is also very nice. There's a question in the application that will also be a little more granular, but chamber music faculty fees, let's say it's $3,000 and it's, $100 an hour for 3 people for 10 hours or whatever it is, just, you could do that, $100 an hour for 3 people for 10 hours. Just give us a little note so we can so the panelists can sort of see where you got that number. And other faculty fees, similar thing. If there's other, maybe it doesn't really matter because we're more interested in the chamber music. We don't need a breakdown of your you give us that, but we don't need notes. This is for the chef, this is for that, because we're not really supporting your chef. I mean, we might, but but that's important. Scholarship awards might be nice. There was a question in the application about it, but a note would be helpful. Same thing with instrument rentals. Just if there's anything you think that helps us understand your numbers, it's very useful for the panel to see that, and they don't have to look in multiple places.
I would say about administrative costs. If your
Yeah.
administrative costs are really high,
Mm,
it actually might be good to explain why, because
yeah,
we might look askance at that otherwise.
that's true.
Hmm.
Yes, exactly. Here's your chance to, like, let's say this happens sometimes. Let's say you have a small program within a large institution. You could explain that here, right? Good. Venue rental, transportation, marketing. Yeah, I think that's basically it. Miscellaneous, definitely. If you have miscellaneous, especially if it's a lot, just a list of what that includes. It doesn't need to be a breakdown, but in-kind contributions, this is not in the budget, but list them there because we will only support up to 50% of program expenses. So in kind, I guess, contributions, but they're not in that. Wait a minute, I'm confused. They don't count towards the 50%, do they, Susan? The in-kind contributions?
Um,
Now I'm asking
well,
myself.
they could. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. But list them here, for
No,
example.
they're like a form of income. Like you don't have to pay for the venue because someone has given you a venue. So I guess.
Yes. So I just realized that I'm not even clear about that. So Susan, let's say someone asks for $2,000
Mm,
and they have no cash income, but they've got 1,000 in kind.
yeah. Well, that's still more than 50% that they're asking.
Yeah. Okay, well, list them there, and this is something we'll look at. And Susan and I will discuss this, and I'll try to make it, I'll try to make clear the guidelines, but generally I don't think, because they're not included, I don't think they actually count towards the 50% in general, but we might be able to make an exception for it. So if you're especially if you're a brand new program and you have no resources,
Mhm.
but most people do have resources because you charge something, so you've got your earned income, and okay, so I think that's that. Let's go back to sorry, shrink that. Back to this. Okay. So that's the budget sheet. The budget form, okay. Okay, this is important. Again, I've already sort of said it, but oh yes, this is very, very important. And again, if you have any doubts, send me an email before you waste time on this application, because this is a time-consuming application form. We do not currently support camps or workshops for which the primary focus is not chamber music. And that is simply, it's not that we don't want to, it's simply that we have a limited budget and we have a very specific mission and focus. So in order for us to support the maximum number of programs that really do fit our mission, we can't support, say, a general music camp that has a small amount of chamber music, a general music workshop that has a small amount of chamber music, or a general music, let's say it's a community program, general music program where, it's not chamber music every week. So, and if you have a question about that, write me and I'll run it by Susan and we'll check. Again, I've said this too many times, I don't have to get into it, but again, I reiterated, we don't, this year at least, we will not support programs for children under 13. So this, just in case people are confused, choral and orchestral programs or general music education classes or workshops, general music workshops are not eligible. Here's one that gets a little confusing to some people: programs that are exclusively intended for an organization's membership. We want to make sure that anyone can apply for your program. So if they have to be a member of your membership organization or club or whatever to be eligible for it, it's not eligible for our support. Susan, do you have any?
Yeah, no, that's right. Or like if it's just only people who go to a certain school or in a certain school district, that kind of thing, then it would not be eligible.
Yeah. I guess the one thing that has come up as a question is if it's a community school, for example, and you need to register with that school. Obviously, a community school, you need to register with the school, but it's open to anyone because anyone can register with that school. So that's fine. But if you have a question, let me know. It's mainly if you have some sort of private membership organization and only those people, or if it's a public school, or if it's a college, like let's say it's a college that has a non-music major chamber music program, and it's only available to students of Columbia University. Well, we can't support that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Columbia can support that. And actually they have more money than we do. So that's a good reason not to, for example. And again, write me if you have any questions, because I know there's not everything fits exactly, you know, there's always wiggle room. So yes, and we do not support individual or group lessons in instrumental technique. So chamber music is not 20 people playing Suzuki violin tunes all in unison. Even though they're trying to play in unison, it's not chamber music. It's not one and apart, but also that the focus of that class is how to play the instrument. What we want to support is courses, workshops, programs where the focus is how to play in an ensemble. In-school programs that are part of the regular school day, that sort of fits that other thing I said. We can't support those. That should be supported by your school system. We don't have enough funding to be supporting the school system. Concerts or activities intended for audience development, education, or otherwise. Yes, we do not support concerts. And if it's an adult amateur concert, we have two programs for that. We have Just Play, which is just for your small group. And we have the Impresario Grant, which is if you run an organization, like a community school, a chamber music organization, a community orchestra that wants to put on a multiple ensemble chamber music concert. You apply for that and it's a one-page PDF and it's much easier. So don't waste time applying for this. We don't support that. Even if it's for amateurs, we don't support concerts. And we don't support like things like pre-concert talks or lectures and things like that. You know, as I said earlier, active participatory chamber music. And again, this professional track music training. So i.e. college music performance majors. And yes, programs for college level non-music majors are eligible. The youth programs, it's not up to us to say if it's pre-professional or not. So because it's a youth program. So we're assuming that youth programs, we're hoping all the youth programs are giving people the highest level of chamber music education. If some of those kids end up applying for and going to conservatory, that's fine. We will support youth programs, you know, as long as they fit all the other criteria. Attend the grant information session. Well, you're already here. So now, if you want to look at a list of recent grantees, this goes back 4 years as a list. If you want to see the scope of people that have gotten it, you can look at that on your own time. Okay, so here we're into the form itself. This is all pretty much self-explanatory. Here's those little, these are the little check boxes to remind you in case you forgot those guidelines. You have to check chamber music is the primary focus of my workshop, camp, or community program. If it's not, don't waste your time. And also we want you to ascertain that you will indeed use our toolkit to promote ACMP to your program participants. So that we already said. Here you tell us your category, and this is very important. If you are applying for more than one program, please submit one application per program category. So if you're running, let's say, 4 adult amateur weekends over the course of a year, you do it in one application form. And you select category 1, classic adult or intergenerational workshop. And you tell us about those 4 weekend retreats, or if you have 2 1-week things that are the same type. If you are an organization that puts on like adult amateur workshops, but also have, say, a youth chamber music camp, you do that in 2 separate application forms. And the reason is there's some different criteria, and we have different panelists that review that. We have different panelists that focus on the youth programs. Likewise, we will also give the community program applications to a different group of panelists, because otherwise they're comparing apples and oranges. Workshops are very different from weekly community programs. So, but if you run more than one community program for the same age group, you can put those in the same application form. If you do a weekly adult amateur or intergenerational course, and you also have a weekly children's course, that's 2 application forms. And you can apply for you can submit up to 2 applications per cycle. So here's about your organization. That's pretty self-explanatory too, just the name of the director and contact info, address. Your organization website, that is not required, but it really helps. We recognize that some people don't have it, so it's not a required field, but our panelists do like to cross-check people's websites. And by the way, because people do that, I'm often getting emails from panelists. I clicked on so-and-so's website and there's no mention of this program. So you might want to make sure, even if it's like more information coming soon, if it's something that you don't have all the information, you might want to make sure that there's something on your website so that I don't have to field that question. Total organization budget. So this grant, the budget form that I showed you, is for this project. So let's say it's 2 adult amateur weekends. That budget is the total cost of those 2 adult amateur weekend retreats. The organization budget is something that we look at so that we can see the scope of your organization. Are you little mom and pops that just does this? So if you are a little mom and pop organization that just produces those 2 adult amateur weekends, your total organization budget will actually be identical to the program budget, but just stick it in here. But most people have other things. So this is where you show us your budget for everything you do. And you might be a large organization that runs multiple programs, like what if you're the 92nd Street Y music department or whatever, you can do that. So that's where and that's really just for our panelists to see the scope of of your organization. Program. Oh, by the way, if you are little mom and pops and it's the same thing, just relabel it, give it a different title and stick it up there, just so no one says, oh, it's missing. Just put the same thing up there twice if you really only do one thing. Okay, the program questions, the name of your project or projects. So if it's multiple workshops, they have different titles, just put them all in here, just a string of things. Likewise, website links for your proposed project, not required, but if you already have a web page that has information about your project, this is where you put it. And if you have more than one project, just comma separated, give us more than one link, or semicolon between, just give us the links here. The total project duration, i.e. 2 weeks, 1 month, 1 year, etc., etc. And this is important, this little detail. If you are applying for multiple programs within the same application, this should be the total combined duration. So as I said, that example, if you have two adult amateur weekends that are each, let's say 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, your total duration is 6 days. So yeah. I guess if you have 2 community programs and they're running over a course of a year, just put 1 year, don't put 2 years. Yes, I just realized that. That would be crazy. Okay. And again, start date, program end date, and if it's more than one program in the same application, start date of the first program, end date of the last program. And a reminder here that longer duration events must be ongoing well beyond March 15th. Location, tell us if it's in person, virtual, or hybrid. And if you select either in person or hybrid, you'll see this magically appears. Oh, I can't do this in yeah, there it is. Then that's a place where you give us the address of your program. If it's all virtual, then that doesn't show up. The total budget in US dollars of your project, that's a project, not your organizational budget. So that should match the budget form that you submit and your grant request. And the grant request this year, the maximum has been reduced to 3,000. It was 5,000 last year, just because, as I said, we have limited funding this year. We did not end up giving anyone over 3,000 last year. So we thought we'll just make that what it is. And a reminder that we will only cover up to 50% of total project expenses up to $3,000. So if you're going to ask for that full 3,000, your budget needs to be, your total project budget needs to be 6,000 or more. A word to the wise, which a lot of people don't remember. I'm a musician too. So I apply for grants, and I know that we all love to apply for the full amount. Even if you think you could use the full amount, if you don't need the full amount, it's looked upon very favorably by our panelists. If your project, if you really only need 1,500 or 1,000 or 2,000, request what you think you need, because we actually, our panelists really appreciate and respect that. When we see a budget that is realistic and not padded, panelists can tell. So it makes a stronger application, I think, if you don't pad the budget to make it up to 3,000. And if you really need the 3,000, and our panelists usually can tell when it's padded and not. So I encourage you to really apply for just what you need. Okay, participants, age range, minimum age, maximum age. We don't know. I mean, maximum age, enter 100 if there's no maximum age. It doesn't mean that you won't accept someone at the age of 101, but I just want to give you a number to put in there. Yes, we're mainly doing this in case it's a specific program for young adults, or, only up to 25 or only up to 40. Here's a place where you could tell us that, just for our statistical purposes. Number of participants. And again, if you're applying for more than one program with the same application, this should be the total combined number of participants. So again, using that example of the 2 adult amateur weekends, let's say you think you're going to have 16 people at each, then your total number of participants is 32. Number of chamber music faculty, let's say you have 4 faculty, and you're doing 2 workshops, and each has 4 faculty, or one has 4, one has 2. Let's say the first one has 4, the second one has 2. This is your total, 6 chamber music faculty. I guess even if it's the same person, I would just total it. How many faculty per thing? So you don't, like, let's say you have the same coaches at both, just count them twice because you have 2 events. If you're just doing one event, you count them once. You have one weekend, you have 4 people, 4 people. This ratio thing, this is something we like to see as just a little snapshot to see. So it's one of the factors judging, the intensity of the experience for people, the ratio of the chamber music faculty to participants. If you can, please reduce this to the lowest common denominator. For example, if you have 4 faculty for 20 participants, the ratio is 1 to 5. If you have 3 faculty for 20, it's 3 to 20, because there is no, but look, if you're confused, we can do math. Just do your best with that. We just want something that the panelists can see quickly to see what the kind of level of experience is going to be, the level of one-on-one interactions that someone might expect. Here, we corrected this from last year. This is also something that we want to see the scope of your program. So if you tell us the number of chamber music coaching hours per faculty member, and this can be an estimate. I know if you're organizing something for next January, you might not know yet, but you think each faculty member is going to be teaching 4 hours over the course of that weekend workshop. You put that number, and here, this is just so that we don't have to do our math ourselves. Total number of chamber music coaching hours over the duration of your program or programs. So again, if it's 2 programs, you use both. So you take these numbers, you have your number of faculty here. Let's say, so if it's 2 programs and it's four in the first weekend, 2 in the next, it's 6. You've got the number 6 in there. Your average number of chamber music coaching hours per faculty number, let's say it's 4. 6 times 4 is 24. That means over the course of your program, there's 24 hours of coached chamber music. Just do the math for us so we don't have to do it ourselves, just again, to see the scope of your program. Okay, so here we're into the narrative. Susan, before I get into the narrative, do you have any comments on that?
No, I don't think so.
It's all
No.
clear. Okay.
Mhm.
So the narrative about your program. Oh, let me you'll see it goes from 1 to 3. That's because now question 2 is different. So right now, let me just pretend I've chosen a category. I'll do this for now. Okay, so question 1 here. This is a very important question. We want you to tell us, about your program, past goals, achievements, alignment with our mission. So here's a chance. This is you making a sort of sales job to our panel about what your program is, what it does, and in what way does it support what ACMP stands for, which is, encouraging and, stimulating chamber music for pleasure. So here's your chance to really explain that to us. Last year's application had a whole question about potential future impact. We took that question away. This is where you can tell us about that, how you think your program supports, what we are trying to accomplish at ACMP. Any comments on that, Susan?
I mean, I think you said it very well.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I guess one thing to say is, this is the first question that the evaluators will see, and so it's always good to make a good impression with your answer to the first question. So, yeah,
Yeah.
just
And yeah. And you have up to 2,000 characters, and that also shows scope, right, Susan? Like, you don't have to fill that, but
mhm.
like,
Yeah,
you
you write this knowing that in the next question you're going to be talking about the day-to-day kind of, what are people going to do, when they go to your program. But this first one is kind of it's more about what you're trying to accomplish and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yes, and so this question 2, I just selected the category of a workshop, and this question is the same whether it's an adult amateur workshop or a children's camp. This is for the shorter range programs. This is here where, and I like this. This is very good guidance. Imagine that you are answering this question for someone considering attending your program, right? So we want you to tell us what you tell the people, the people you're recruiting. So tell us detail about what's going to happen at your program. And this is very important because this gets the panelists excited about your program. We want our panelists to be looking at this and say, I want to attend this. Tell us, like, day to day, what you can expect, the typical schedule of activities. And sometimes people even put a schedule in there, like bullet points, every day this happens at 8 o'clock. You could do that. You can get that granular. Number of groups each participant might play in. Average number of chamber music playing hours per participant. What can the participant expect? Are they going to an adult amateur weekend retreat where they're going to play 5 hours a day? Tell us that, or is it just whatever? So this is where you can really tell us that. Are there additional things? So it's a chamber music workshop, but are there also master classes, performance opportunities, sight reading parties? Are there non-musical things? Are there things, are there excursions you do? Tell us about your accommodation. If it's residential, it may not be residential. And you can say that this is it's a day program. It's a non-residential. You can tell us that. Or if it is residential, say that we have rooms in a castle in Switzerland or something, or whatever you have. Yeah, a fish farm in Indonesia. I stayed at a fish farm in Indonesia once on a workshop. But anyway, it didn't smell very nice. And then here also, anything that you think makes your program unique. And I already said this, if you have a sample schedule, you can you can put one in here. Now I'm going to select another category because there's basically two versions of this question. If you're a community program, it's slightly different. So let's do this. I'll just select the adult one for now. The question for that, because we recognize it's a very different type of thing and it goes to different panelists. Here, just describe in detail the experience participants can expect. For example, how often will they meet and for how long? What they will learn? What will they play? What kind of, for example, I know some programs here in New York City where I live where they have a concert at the end, multiple concerts, some sort of, they'll have like some sort of guest clinician coming in, master class, whatever. Same sort of thing as question 2 for the workshops, except we don't need the day-to-day experience and stuff because this is a different kind of thing. Faculty names and brief biographies. You can either type them in if you have a small number of people, or if you have a web page that has all your faculty and bios on it, you can simply just say, see this web page and give it to us. That's pretty straightforward. Maximum 4,000 characters. So if you have 20 faculty, you're going to have to give us a web page or just list their names or something. Just do what you can. And we say brief bios, we really mean that. One brief paragraph, just to give us an idea of the kind of person that you're engaging for your activity. The fourth question here, educational approach and philosophy of your program and the rationale behind your choice of faculty. So, you know, I don't know, Susan, do you have anything to say about this one?
Well, there are a lot of different ways that that programs work, and so this is our chance to understand, how you're approaching running the workshop. What style of coaching do you use? What do you emphasize in, for the people who are there? Yeah, so for example, in the bottom, we have this thing about, different kinds of coaching. So there, sometimes the coach sits in the groups and plays with the participants. Sometimes the coach is outside of the group, and sometimes participants coach each other. Sometimes you have faculty who are chosen, for example, if it's a youth program, because they're specifically interested in working with young people. Sometimes they're chosen for other reasons. So it just gives us a sense of what kind of thought you've put into your program, and it gives us a little more insight into the kind of experience that participants are going to have because of what your philosophy of education is.
Good. Well
Yeah.
said. Well said, Susan.
Okay.
Good. Number 5 is just how you plan to publicize your program and recruit new applicants. And this is a good, this shows also, like, it's very important to us, as I said, that your program's open to anyone in the wider community. So this is a really good opportunity to tell the panelists how you're reaching those people in the wider community, so that we really know it's not just for your private club or, people already in your organization. And also it shows us that you're going to be able to find people too. It's very important for us to know that. Who is eligible for your program along those same lines, and how do you select them? So that's pretty straightforward, I think. What are your criteria?
Yeah, and I mean, I'll say about this one that some programs are looking for the best players. Some programs are looking for a diverse population. So programs have different emphases. Some programs are open to whoever everyone who comes. Some programs are trying to put together certain kinds of ensembles, and so they'll be looking for the right mix of instruments. Some programs make people audition. Some programs don't. Some programs make you send a recommendation in. So there's a lot of stuff, and different ways of doing it, and we just want to understand, because again, this gives us insight into what you have in mind for your program and the kind of experience people have there.
Good, excellent. So along those lines, Susan was talking about some programs are about specific types of populations, stuff like that. We have a question here in which you can also further explain in what ways do you strive to share the joy of chamber music with underserved geographic areas and or communities, and if you do. And for us, underserved geographic areas and communities, this can include, like, for example, we gave a grant to an all-female brass camp. Remember, she can play brass. So here's where you say, there's a shortage of women in the brass field, and we have this brass quintet camp only for women, and this, whatever, this is how we reach out to them. So that's a community. That would be a demographic, and you explain why. Or do you have a program where you specifically have scholarships for people from a certain racial background, ethnic background, or whatever? You can say that here. Underserved geographic area, this is, let's say you're in a rural community and you happen to know that there's nothing else, and that's this next part here. If so, please specify. Oh yes, are there other organizations in your area providing similar chamber music opportunities? If so, please specify and describe ways in which you collaborate with them, if you do. But let's say you're in a rural area and you know that you're the only chamber music thing available. Here's where you talk about that. That's an underserved geographic area. Or let's say, in the US, we might think of this differently than in international applications, right? So it's good. So are you the only one offering this particular program in this particular town in Ecuador or whatever? This is where you have a chance to tell us. And this part about if there are other organizations, like, show us that that there's other organizations doing things, and are you still doing something that's different from them, or do you have a way that you're reaching out to them and collaborating with them and really enhancing the chamber music ecosystem in that area that you're in? Do you have further comments on that, Susan?
I would just say that, community can mean a lot of things. It's not necessarily just demographics. It could be like, we're the only workshop that for amateurs that looks at Baroque performance practice, or has sackbut players, or it can be things like that. And underserved people can also be an economic thing where you're trying to reach out to people who maybe normally wouldn't be able to afford to do something like this, and you have well thought out ways to make this accessible to them. So this is the chance to just to show that you're aware that there's a need that's not being met in other ways that you are meeting, and it's great for us to know about that.
Excellent. And along those lines, then we get into this question about scholarships. So you were just speaking about economic need. You will see as you scroll down that there's information about scholarships. So for example, if your thing is that you reach out and give scholarships to, people from underserved economic groups, then you can give us more detail later in the application about those scholarships. So we do want to know how much it costs for the participant to participate in your program. And where applicable, please break this down into tuition, room and board, if there is room and board, administrative fees, and any other expenses. We just want to know, like, if it's going to cost someone, like, let's say your program's $500, but they also have to pay $500 for room and board. We want to know that, like, it's going to cost a total of $1,000 for a person to attend your workshop, and you give us the breakdown. And that also helps our panelists understand your budget form too, actually. A very important question. Now this question, do you offer scholarships? Not everyone does. A lot of people don't have that, but if you click yes, how many scholarships do you plan to give, and what is your total budget in US dollars for scholarships? And here, this is very important. Briefly describe your criteria for selecting scholarship recipients. If you do give scholarships, it would be nice for us to know that anyone could apply. And it's not just, an inside deal. So how do you select those? Like what, and again, as Susan said in that other question, is it a merit thing? Do they have to audition for it? They have to submit a tape. They have to submit a letter. Or is it, like you want someone from this particular underserved school district, and you let the school help choose people. There's people that do that as well. If you have an underserved school district in your area. So this is where you can get detailed about that. Okay, so now, if you are awarded a grant, how do you plan to use ACMP funding? And what will you do if you do not receive the full amount? So this is a chance where you can show us your sort of fiscal competence and that you've got a plan. So you've created this budget for us. And by the way, the budget form, which I showed, actually, I don't know if I specifically, in income, you put the grant request from ACMP in there as if it's income. You build your budget as if you're going to get the amount you request. So if you're applying for the full 3,000, you put 3,000 in there. But we need to know, let's say you don't get 3,000, what are you going to do? Are you going to charge more? Are you going to give fewer scholarships? Are you going to reduce the faculty? Are you going to reduce the duration of the thing? Are you not going to be able to do it at all? Here's something, if it's really true, like you need this $3,000 or bust, we need to know that here as well. So I think that's clear enough.
Yeah, I just want to say about that one that when we say how do you plan to use ACMP funding, it's not like, oh, we'll use it to buy music or we'll use it to we're really trying to understand how having our funding will enable you either to expand, what you're doing or do it at all. I mean, but we're not saying, oh, you can only use our money for certain things. There was a time when we asked exactly what you're going to use your money for, but it's just silly, you can move the money around. So we're just more interested in conceptually, how we're helping you with our funding.
Yes. Yes, and you can use it for any aspect of your program, which is, yes. Good. Okay, question 11, the final narrative question here, unless you have a final report to do. This is basically how we, as we said earlier, especially this is part of the whole thing with the toolkits and stuff, we want to build a robust and enthusiastic community of members and organizational partners through our grants program. How do you plan to acknowledge ACMP for its support if awarded? And how will you encourage ACMP membership among your adult participants and or alumni? And I just want to emphasize, just remind you all, our membership is free. So we're not making any money off of this. We're not having this program and then trying to get people to join and we're going to make a lot of money off of it. What we're trying to do is get more and more people in our directory so that we're of a better service to the adult amateur community worldwide. The more people, more engaged adult amateurs in our directory, the better it is for everyone if you're trying to organize a play-in or a chamber music party or just a session. So, it's, from our perspective, getting your adult amateur participants to know about us and join is of great benefit to the whole field of adult amateur chamber music playing in general. That's why we're doing this. Here's some things this is your program a brand new initiative? Like, are you starting something from scratch for the very first time? Yes or no? We love brand new initiatives. We'll support anyone. We also will support something that's been around for 75 years. We're happy to support that too. But this is something that, if it is new, let us know, because this is something very exciting to us, that someone's creating a new workshop or retreat or program. Is this your first application for funding for this or these particular programs? So let's say you've gotten funding in the past for like a children's camp, but you're starting a new adult amateur community program. And or you've had one for years but have never applied. Then it means that this is your first application for this or these particular programs. If it's, even if you've gotten money from us for something, a different type of program, the answer is yes, if you've never applied for the particular program or programs in this particular application. Has your organization received ACMP funding for this particular program? And so, for example, if you systematically, we have someone that sends every year something for their children's program and their adult program, and this is the application for the children's program, this is only about that children's program. So let's say you didn't, but you did get it for your adult program. The answer is, did you receive funding for this children's program? The answer in that case would be no. So just remember that this is a project specific application. Do you agree to allow us to use documentation from your workshop or community program, photos, et cetera, on our website and social media? Yes or no? It's not going to affect the outcome. We just need to know, because we do, when you give us final reports, then we can use your photos in our e-blasts about workshops, in our grants page. It's good for us to have access, but we're not going to not give you a grant because the answer is no, but we just need to know here. This is like your release form thing. And then we're assuming that you have a release form for your participants. So if you're saying yes to this, we hope that at your event, your participants sign a release form saying that they might end up on a website. And here, please upload your completed project budget form. This is where you upload the form, and it can be Excel or PDF. It can also be a Word doc, but if you really can't use Excel and want to just copy stuff in, you can, but that's not a great option. And you have to use our template, which I already showed you where it was. Okay, so the final report question only shows up if you do this. Has your organization received funding for this program in this past year? And if the answer is yes, oops, didn't work. There you go. And this is where we do the final report. It's easier for us to collect the final report when you're applying for the next one. We need it here. So even if you have, sometimes applicants finish a program and they just preemptively email me a final report, like sometime in the middle of the year, April, May, whatever. Even if you've done that, please keep that in your files and upload it here too. It just makes it easier for us. We have a very small staff. It makes it easier for us when we collate it that we have your final report in here that the panelists can also see. And here there's a simple question. How much funding did you receive in the 2023-2024 grant cycle? Just so we don't have to look it up. If you don't remember, please look it up yourself and put the number there. Do you agree to let us, well, that shows up regardless. Here we are, the final report narrative. We want you, this can be brief, 2,500 character limit. And even if you submitted something really long, if you really wanted to write me something, a couple times, by the way, people have sent me really long things. And I thought it was really interesting. And I wrote them and said, can we turn this into a blog article? So if you really feel like writing a story about your thing and sending it to me, go ahead and do it. That's very cool. But for this purpose, we want 2,500 characters max. And just tell us about what happened at your last thing, some stories, the impact, how many people, well, just tell us about how it went and what went on. And here, just for our statistical purposes, we also want you to just enter numbers. How many adult amateur musicians attended your ACMP funded program? The one that you got funding for. Just give us a number. And also, how many youth 18 years or under, or still in high school if older than 18, attended your ACMP funded programs? Just give us those numbers so we know what the numbers served by your program, and for our purposes, the numbers served by our grants program. This is for our statistical purposes. And here's the optional supporting documents for final report. You can give us links. We love it when you give us links to a Google Drive folder with photos and PDFs and videos and stuff. This is a place to put a bunch of links to places where we could download those materials. And lastly, if you are not a robot, you check this box and press submit. This is important. The save and continue later. This was new last year. When you do the save and continue later, I don't know if it'll do it now because I haven't. Here you are. When I press save and continue later, I get this. It gives me a link. You could copy this link. And I would do both. Copy the link and enter your email address and click send link. And that way you will get a link to your application that you can edit within 30 days. So since our cycle is more than 30 days, if you do this, make sure you put it in your calendar and check in before 30 days are up so you don't lose your work. But this is a way you can keep returning to your thing. As someone that's written a lot of grant applications in my life, I highly recommend working offline. I've had this experience where it's like 11:30 and the deadline's 11:59. I'm working on the form and it all disappears. Don't do that to yourself. Work offline and copy and paste, but you can also still do this. So all the nitty-gritty stuff like your name, phone number, stuff you don't have to re-enter. Okay, so I feel like that concludes what I would say. Do you have anything to add, Susan, before we open it up to questions?
No, I think we should just see what questions people have.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for now. Here we go. So does anyone have any questions about the form or guidelines?
There are some in the chat, a few questions.
Okay. Oh, let's see. The chat. Okay, if we are planning to run the same programs we ran last year are currently ongoing, should the narrative portion of the application be updated in any way from last year's approved application? No. I mean,
Well,
if it's
yes, actually, because we've changed the application a little.
yeah, but where the questions are the same, the narrative questions could be the same, right? Or
Yeah.
not.
And if the question hasn't changed, then the answer can stay the same.
Yes, I mean, but read carefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be the answer, I guess.
Simon, Simone or Simon?
Simone.
Simone, yes.
Yeah, thank you. I have a couple of questions. One of them is the budget amount. I'm a freelancer and so is my wife, and we have a studio here, and the camp is at the studio where we have a concert hall and some outbuildings. So there is the budget of the camp, and then there is the budget of us as freelancers. And I'm not quite sure what it is I should put in the application.
Okay, the application form should be the budget of the camp because the application budget form is a project budget. So just what it would, so for example, if you have rent on this space, then prorated, I guess, what the rent would cost for that particular period.
But he says they're freelancers. They don't actually own the camp. They're not part of the camp. They're just using the camp location to run an independent workshop. Am I getting that right?
No, we do own the camp. It's on our property. It's a large outbuilding and several other outbuildings. We have 5 spaces. And yeah, so it's confusing. So you're just saying do the budget of what it is to run the camp for 1 week is.
You could, or the other thing you could do is you could, in your organization budget, where you tell us the scope of your organization, put the rent of the space, and like it would be like what you do on a tax return, you know, the amount of the space that goes towards work could go in your organization budget. The project budget, you could also make it an in-kind. You could make a note, you could say in kind, we own the space and we're letting the camp use it.
Okay.
You're not paying
But-
rent to the space because you own it. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
What do you think, Susan?
So
I would probably make it in kind, but
do you run other programs on this at this place?
I've tried some weekend things. We've stuck pretty much to that 1 week format for many years now.
So there isn't really another organization besides just this project.
Well, there is. I mean, it's I'm part of a chamber music group that has a series, and they have a website, and we use that website to advertise the camp.
Mm.
I belong to an amateur sort of education group for string players, and they have a website, and I advertise it there. So there are lots of organizations that I'm entangled with, and it's just it's unclear what the actual budget should be.
Mm.
Yeah, it sounds like this is just a freestanding project that's not really part of another organization.
Yeah, I think so too, because it sounds like, so if you're freelance, you've got multiple organizations, but you don't have like, so for your, maybe then the project budget and the organization budget could be the same, and maybe you could put the space as an in-kind line and say, in the in-kind line, you could say what the approximate value it would be for the duration of your camp.
Okay.
But that you own it, and that's what I would do.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you want links to a website, can I use the website of my other organizations to send you to the link that has information about this camp?
Yes. Yes, I would do that for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially in that
Okay.
question that says link to information about this project. Yeah, I would just put the same link in both fields if that's what you have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thanks for what you do. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for applying. Thanks for what you do. I see another question here in the chat. Pam McDonald, if our workshop's not scheduled until late 2025, is it okay to use a hyperlink to the web page? Yeah, I think so. But I would, if I were you, just to be safe, I would put a coming soon thing up there. Coming soon, please check back by such and such a date for information about our 2025 workshop. Just so that panelists don't look at this and say, but this is old. Just cover your bases by putting a little coming soon thing. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes. And 176449 has a question. I like that the question's about numbers. Does the number of characters include spaces between words? And it does. It's spaces and punctuation in words. Gavin, yes. If you apply for more than one grant, does the 3K apply to each? It does, because they're different programs. So if you have a children's program in one and an adult program in another, you can apply for up to 3,000 in each program. Do we have any, Amy, do you have a, yeah.
I was concerned about the date that the program needs to start. So if you're working in an academic school year, that doesn't, like, if a program starts, recruiting people in September and then the final event is in March, how does that work?
Then you apply for next year's thing. So it would be like September. If it is really September to March, then you would apply for the program beginning in September 2025 to March 2026.
Oh, so I missed it for this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess so. Yeah. If it really is September to March, if it's September through June, we can discuss it because it's still going on March, April, May, June. You can apply and then whatever, but it's probably better to get on to next year's cycle. But if it really is September to March, then it is next year that you would have to apply.
And then, okay, that.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions? Let's see. I don't see any other questions. Pam,
I have a question. Yeah. We have a program that would fit really well into your criteria. It's offered twice a year. It's a one-day, full-day workshop for adults and students over age 13. But it doesn't have a budget deficit. It generally comes out about even. Is that still something, because it has expenses, is that something that we can apply to ACMP, or are you looking for programs that
that basically run on a deficit if not for grant funding?
I would apply for the grant and then like, okay, so for example, let's say you can do it without the grant, but you could do it better with the grant. Then figure out what you would need from us, and there's that question, what you're going to use the ACMP funding for. Like if you had, say, let's say you had $1,500, let's say you want to apply for $1,500. If you had $1,500 from ACMP, you could offer 3 $500 scholarships, which you've never done before, or something. And then in that question about what do you do if you're not funded, you just say, if we're not funded, our workshop will take place, but we won't be able to give the scholarships. Or if you're not funded, let's say you applied for 1,500 and you only get 1,000. Okay, if we get less money, we'll give fewer scholarships. But if you think getting grant money from us can help you make it a better program and accessible to more people, I would highly encourage you to apply.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have any other questions? No?
Hmm.
Nothing in the chat?
I'm curious how many people would be first time applicants who are in the meeting, if you know how to raise your hand. People can raise their hands without.
Okay, Mark Shelton raised a physical hand. Anyone else? First time applicant?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have
Okay.
one quick question. I think I know the answer, but I'll just put this out there. Hi, Stephanie. Hi.
Hello.
So I live in a very rural area with very limited music education. And so my colleagues and I at Idaho State University offer a music camp for middle school and high school students for once a week in June. It's a big deal. It's the only thing in the area. But because, well, for lots of reasons, partly because to do just a chamber music camp with kids, the faculty to student ratio is like, doesn't work out for the finances of this region. So we have to find ways to have more activities that include more people at once. So our day includes for string players and orchestra, for string players, chamber music, and various other activities. So that seems like this would not be eligible because you want camps that are really specifically focused on chamber music, and ours does several different things. But my other question was, the program is called Summer Institute for Piano and Strings. So our pianists spend more time playing piano forehands. They do still have master classes playing repertoire. Do piano forehands, does that count? And would that be a way? I don't see us ever being able to offer just a chamber music workshop for these kids in the foreseeable future because of the circumstances. So it seems likely to me that I should just look for funding elsewhere, but I just wanted to confirm that that's the case.
Well, piano forehands definitely counts.
Okay, good.
that is chamber music, and so would be like art song if anyone's thinking about doing something like that at a workshop. So just to answer that question.
Wonderful.
The rest of it about like the mix, the percentage of chamber music, yeah, I guess we just have to see how much there was.
Yeah, Nell, if you could make it like, for example, if you had like a title for the program for the pianists. So for example, the pianists are not going to play an orchestra and do all these other things. They will be doing forehands, but they'll also be having piano lessons or whatever else they're doing. I don't know what they're doing. But if you think that the piano participants will be doing something that really is primarily chamber music, and you made sort of a title for that and something on your website and applied for that particular program, and gave us a budget for that program, even if it was small, I feel like that would be eligible.
All right.
Whereas the general music camp sadly would not be. And I wish we could. Someday we're going to have so much money that we can, but right now, we don't. So yeah. And anyway, Nell, if you want to run that by me, if you talk to your colleagues and find a way to do that and you want to run it by me before doing the whole application, I can send it to Susan. She and I can look it over and give you feedback.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Do we have any other questions or?
I have another little question. You emphasized that everything should be one on a part. It's been a practice at our camps that we do sight reading sessions where we just kind of plow through a work. Like last year we did Death of the Maiden, and the teachers lead, and we just plow through it. We don't work on it. It's sort of a sight reading bash, and people really get a kick out of it, but it's not one on a part. You know, we stick a bunch of people on each part.
That's
What's
fine.
your take on that?
I think that's fine if it's not like, if your program was just that, then that might be more of a play-in application, and there's a type of play-in that is a sort of en masse play-in. But your workshop is more than that, right? You have groups and you have coaches, and like that's one, Simone, that's one activity, right? That's like one
Correct.
of.
That's just
Yeah. No, I think that's totally cool. Like, it's also cool if you have a chamber music camp, and then like Kinhaven has some sort of orchestra thing they do at the end where they all play together and the pianists play percussion and stuff. But that's like that's like an extra activity. The focus of the camp is a chamber music camp.
okay. Thank
You
you.
don't mind, right, Susan? I mean, the extracurricular
Yeah,
activity
yeah.
could also be visiting a chocolate factory or something.
Right. Going to Mahler's composition cabin, or yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
We have a question in the chat from Caroline. We have groups that rehearse one on a part, but certain players end up needing support in the concert. That's fine.
Mm.
Yeah, that's fine. And by the way, we're not going to be scrutinizing the photos to see how many people are there, but that I'm glad you asked. But as long as it is a chamber music thing where theoretically it's one on a part, and they're learning a chamber music part in a chamber music setting. And if you have someone in a sort of buddy system, sort of bolstering up a less experienced player, that's totally fine. You could even explain it in your educational philosophy.
Mhm.
That you have this inclusive, let's say you have this like inclusivity thing where you want to make sure everyone can play, but so you accept people that really need help. And you could say, we do one on a part chamber music, but we, in that case, we'll have like a buddy system where someone supports and helps that person play. That would be very favorably looked upon, I think. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Any other questions or and as I said, you can email at any time about, anything about your program that you think might fall between the cracks. I'm there, and Susan and I are both there, and we will get back to you about those things. It's 2:27. We're in good. We're 3 minutes. So I feel like if there's no more questions, I would adjourn this, and I just want to say good luck with your applications, and it's really important part of what ACMP does. Like, you prospective grantees, hopefully you'll all be grantees. Like, you're a very important part of our community, and you're a very important part of fulfilling our mission. And we really appreciate that you apply each year. We wish we had more money, and we appreciate what you do and what you bring to, the chamber music ecosystem at large. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for attending this session, and good luck with your applications. And as I said, reach out if you have any specific questions, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.